Station to Station, your Blue Jays series recap show. My battery mate again today is Dustin. Dustin, the Jays just finished a four-game series versus the Houston Astros, in which they won 3-1. They welcomed the Minnesota Twins to the Rogers Center and had a record of 36 and 28 and fourth in the AL East going into this series. We're going to talk about the game in a moment, but we are going to dive into a roster move that happened on Friday. So last couple of weeks, Anthony Bass there's been some controversy surrounding him. He was designated for assignment on Friday afternoon. Mitch White was activated from the 60-day injured list in replacement for him. But I'm going to go over just kind of a little bit of the timeline here because Bass has had a couple weeks. I'm going to preface this by saying that this is the only time that I will be talking about Anthony Bass. I don't think he as an individual and as a player deserves really any of my time or energy, and especially given his actions of late. So in terms of kind of what happened, Bass has not been, I guess, the most popular player in the Jays. There was an Instagram post about popcorn and something on a plane, and I guess the airplane crew making his pregnant wife pick it up. He wasn't too happy about that, but I guess fans didn't really appreciate, I guess, the mess his kids caused. So he was already kind of not the most popular player on the Jays. But what I guess made it worse was that he shared an Instagram story uh, on May 29th in which he supported a boycott of Target and Bud Light. Target for their sale of LGBTQ, I guess, merchandise, and Bud for their support of just the overall LGBTQ movement. Anthony Bass is a Christian. He actually has like Bible mentions in his Instagram bio. And so this he eventually posted it, deleted it. I think he posted it again and then realized, no, this is no bueno, and deleted it again. So on May 30th, the Jays trotted him out for a statement. He did not answer any questions, but he basically just said, I apologize for hurting anyone, and he was quickly brought back into the dugout, and nothing further was mentioned. We're now a couple weeks later, and he actually meets with the Blue Jays media corps, and answers questions, and he is not really reading a prepared statement, but he was definitely prepped for it, and he basically states that he didn't realize this was hurtful, and he apologizes, but that he and I believe, and I wrote down the statement here. He understands it now was hurtful, but I stand by my beliefs.
Right.
So there's 2 weeks of, essentially frothing at the mouth, and the Jays kind of just, keeping him away from the press. And then he makes this appearance on Thursday. And so it was also announced that he was supposed to catch the first pitch on Friday of the Twin Series, which is the opening game of the, I guess, Pride weekend, the kickoff. And so I guess I actually hadn't seen his statements and everything at the time. So I originally thought, okay, well, he's made amends, and here is his Eminem, Elton John moment. I believe I
Right.
mentioned that prior. But he didn't get that because he was designated for assignment that afternoon. And it seems that his stance that, I'm sorry that I hurt people, but I'm standing by my personal beliefs, didn't seem to go over too well with the LGBTQ community, the Jays front office, and just really, I think, Toronto as a whole.
Yeah, and I think it kind of his doubling down there made Ross Atkins look a little bit foolish because just before he had done that, Ross Atkins was out there saying things like, Anthony Bass has, you know, learned and, we had good conversations and blah, 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 blah. And basically made it seem like he had kind of come around and changed his mind. And then he kind of comes out and doubles down. So I think that's also a little bit of a reason why he got, you know, DFA the next day. I thought a lot about, what to say or how to talk about this, and I've watched a lot of um, podcast videos and, read a lot of stuff about, a lot of hot takes. And I don't know, I'm a little bit, obvious. Well, Al, I don't have to tell you that, I disagree with everything that, um, with every sentiment that is expressed in the video that he posted. And, I'm on, team LGBTQ. Um, so, I think that it's, I'm happy with the decision ultimately. Um, and I think that, you know, well, here's what I'll say. I watch baseball, and I think most people who are sports fans watch sports because, it's entertainment, right? We're here to see, amazing athletes do amazing athletic stuff, you know, diving catches, dingers, and, nasty sliders. That's what I'm watching baseball for. If I want to, talk about or listen to a political opinion, I'm going to seek that out in another venue. So, I think that, you know, these people who are public figures, especially, in the non-political space, you know, they should try and, keep their public facing, you know, posts and Instagram stuff and all this stuff, to the venue that they're, um, that they work in, because the whole point, and I think that was the message that at least the Blue Jays front office was trying to send, is like, this baseball is for everybody. We welcome people. That's the whole point of like the Pride Nights at the park and all these things that went on last weekend. And, you know, that's their message. And I think that's what kind of was frustrating, was like they were trying to send that message while Anthony Bass was just like basically, obviously being forced to say the quote unquote right things. And, everything about his body language and, his careful answers just said that he didn't really believe it. And so, you know, I think it's the right thing to DFA him. Ultimately, I think that honestly, I think that's something that I've disagreed with a lot of people, like on our side of, let's say, the argument. I've heard a lot of takes that, the Blue Jays should have just like DFA'd them the next day, or, just like, that's it, like cut him off, no chance, they should have dropped him. I don't know. I felt like they kind of did somewhat a reasonable thing. They got him to apologize. They got him, they talked about getting him resources or whatever. They tried to, do what they can. I guess, in this climate, it's hard to change somebody. So I just, the last straw happened and they did what they did. And I don't know. I really don't see any problems with the way things were handled, to be honest.
Well, there definitely is a lot of people upset how things were handled. I would say that this is not the first time that the Toronto Blue Jays have dealt with a player and essentially either homophobic posts or conduct or what have you. A couple players in the past, we do remember Yunel Escobar and
Hmm.
his eye black. That was
Yeah.
I'm not laughing at what he wrote on it. I thought it was, but I just laugh at the ridiculousness of why you would do that. Writing a message, a homophobic message on your eye black seemed very strange. But he was quickly dispatched. The other player that I think Jays fans probably have a short memory of with Kevin Pillar, and
Yeah,
he, in turn, he actually made good on, um, he realized and he made good on things, and so I think it seems like the Jays wanted to give Anthony Bass that opportunity. I I don't know. We don't
well,
know Anthony Bass, like we don't in the same change room with him, but I would probably think that they probably knew that this wasn't going to go well, but they tried, right? And I do think that you are 100% correct that when he doubled down on, his quote unquote personal beliefs, which I don't know. It's a discussion for another day about what these personal beliefs are. Like nobody's asking him
yeah, we don't
to,
need to, yeah,
join the other team, right? But um yeah, it the whole situation, and I did, media in Toronto are going to jump on this, and they did, right?
sure.
And I saw words like confounding, and there was a Globe and Mail article that I wanted to read that was behind a paywall, but it was from Cathal Kelly, and from my TFC experience in the past, I know he is wouldn't say sensational, but he likes to be quite edgy. And so
Mhm.
I imagine that article was quite judgmental of how the Jays handled it. To be honest, I knew this was coming. I think you knew this was coming.
Yeah,
Anthony Bass is, I think he made less than $1 million at the time he was DFA'd. He is not really a He's not really a great player at all. He was a veteran arm in the bullpen, and he was having a bad year. So I think you and I were both waiting for this time that he was going to be released, and that day has come. And uh, I wouldn't say I'm cheering in the streets, but I'm glad to be moving on from this. And you know, I I I don't think he gets it, and I don't think he will.
no.
And we'll see. Nobody's picked him up yet, so I don't know how long this process will take. But we'll see if he ends up with another team. He is, I believe, in his mid 30s, so this might be the end for him.
It could be, yeah. And just to quickly note, just on the Yunel Escobar and the Kevin Pillar incidents, the difference with those two were they were on the field, right? Like they were on TV, on the field incidents, and this one was kind of like an off the field incident. So I think there's a little bit difference there. I think it's a lot more understandable to be harsher when you're doing something on the field. And I know Kevin Pillar's thing was, uh, I think he was fairly contrite and almost like realized that he did something wrong and seemed to be very apologetic about it. Um, so yeah, I know. I think you know. I think it's good to give people the chance, the opportunity to turn it around, to realize that there's another world where Anthony Bass like sees the reaction and is like, oh wow, well I didn't realize like it was that bad, and is truly apologetic, and it's genuine, and maybe there's a different outcome here, but um, you give somebody some rope and they'll hang themselves, and that's what he did. So good riddance, and I hope we don't have to talk about him again.
Well, I can assure you we won't. All right, lineup for game number one against the Twins. We left to right in the outfield. We have Witt, Varsho, and Cavan Biggio. Around the horn, third to first, Matt Chapman, Bo Bichette, Santiago Espinal, and Vladimir Guerrero. Tyler Heineman is our catcher in this game, and our DH is Brandon Belt. Pitching matchup, Yusa Kikuchi versus Sonny Gray. Kikuchi comes in this game 6-2 with a 4.40 ERA and a 1.37 WHIP. The Jays take the field in their powder blues, and Kikuchi gets the game underway with his first pitch at 7:07 p.m. Now this game remains scoreless until the top of the fifth when Kikuchi gives up a two-run home run to Minnesota. That was a home run to left field. The Jays quickly answer in the bottom of the fifth, where Bo Bichette hits a RBI single, in which Santiago Espinal scores on. He had walked earlier in the inning. Now, during the broadcast, Dustin, they did pan to the dugout, and you could see Schneider was talking to Kikuchi, who was visibly upset that he was about to be taken out of the game.
I didn't see that.
Well, I don't want to. If you didn't see it, I don't want to overblow it. But he was, he's still pitching. He's a professional athlete, and he's getting the hook. And he
yeah,
only at that point he'd only given up 2 runs, so he was basically not going to come back out for the top of the sixth. And yeah, he wasn't a happy camper. I wouldn't, you didn't take off his shoes and throw them on the ground or anything,
sure, sure.
but
Well,
but
yeah, I mean,
he seemed to be visibly frustrated and was hoping to come back out.
well, I would hope that, an athlete is going to be competitive enough to want to, be in there, and he obviously felt good, and I think he was pitching fairly well. I mean, you know, we know Uni, he'll give up a bomb or two every once in a while. So that's, what we've said about him, and I think we said it the last time we talked about him is, as long as he keeps those walks down and he's, not got two or three guys on base, then, that's a pretty good outing when he, maybe one of the best hitters in the league, hits a home run off you. I think, that's going to happen. But yeah, I think um, he did fairly well in this game. I think, just continued his pretty good performances, and I would have liked to see him come out um, and do another inning and see how far he can go. I mean, Lord knows the bullpen needs some of the rest.
Well, before we get on to the sixth inning, in the bottom of the fifth, uh, during the broadcast showing Kikuchi in the dugout, the Jays actually leave the bases loaded with 1 out. So we have another Jays inning where they just are not able to get any runs in, and that inning in particular ends 2-1. Nate Pearson is the one that comes on to replace Kikuchi, and Kikuchi's pitching line: 5.0 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. Yeah, I would hang this as a pretty decent outing from Kikuchi.
Yeah, I think that he's been putting a lot of strong outings together here, and thankfully he is, because we were kind of hoping for this kind of performance from Manoah, and we've talked about him already a lot, but you know it's just we need it. We need this kind of strong performance from the 4 or 5 guys, and we're getting it. So
Bottom of six now. The Jays do claw back into this game with another run. So there's an Espinal single and a George Springer pinch hit RBI triple. He took a hack at the first pitch, hit it to the wall in center field, and both of these hits actually happened with 2 outs. That inning ends 2-2. All right, top nine now as the game remains 2-2 until then. I am going to just highlight what happened. Although the Jays did not score, we have Espinal gets hit by a pitch. Springer hits a double, and I thought this was a key moment, somewhat in the game, where Espinal is actually held at third base. Based on I've watched the replays, and that was 100% the right call, as Espinal would have been dead on arrival at
yeah,
home. And so I don't think there was another option. The infield comes in at this point, so we have basically we have a second and third, and Kirk hits a hard grounder to second base, and the second baseman is able to snag that and throw it over to first. There is a Bo Bichette strikeout. Vladdy is intentionally walked, bit of a risk here. and Brandon Belt steps up to the plate and he gets some good contact, but he lines out directly to the same second baseman that got Kirk out. So the Jays had a glorious opportunity, Dustin, here, but I don't know if I'm going to fault them for this. There seemed to be some real bad luck.
Yeah, there was a little bit of bad luck, but oh man, Uh, and look, Brendan Belt's been the bright spot of this lineup for a long time, so I'm not going to give him a whole lot of guff. I mean, he's done fairly well, and he lined up pretty sharply. He hit the ball pretty hard. It's just, we're sounding like broken records here with winnable games here. This is just, you know, this was an eminently winnable game. Um, I think, just a little inside baseball. We were recording the last podcast during this inning, and I kind of had it on my screen on mute while we were recording, and just all I could do for not, swearing and, you know, ruining the podcast. It's just so frustrating to see bases loaded in a pivotal moment like this, and you can't do anything.
Well, I would totally agree. I think Bo Bichette had a relatively quiet series, so that strikeout right in the middle of all that
Yeah,
probably the key kind of moment in there. But as I said, the that belt uh, that belt hit like I didn't see the exit velocity, but he really got good contact on that ball, and he just happened to hit it like the second baseman didn't even have to move, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah.
But in the 10th inning, the Twins take the lead, and it is now 3-2. The Jays do hold them to 1 run, and in the bottom of the 10th, Kevin Kiermaier starts as our runner on second base. There's a Chapman ground out. Witt walks, so we do have two runners at this point, but we have a Dalton Varsho strikeout. And to end the game, a Santiago Espinal pop up, and the Twins win game number one, 3-2. The winning pitcher, Johan Duran, and losing pitcher, Adam Simber. Kikuchi, although he gets a no decision in this game, so he is still 6-2. His ERA actually lowers to 4.34.
Yeah, and a lot of times that we talk about, what the Jays could have done to win. I mean, I think you got to hand it a little bit to the Twins here. And I mean, this was a hard-fought game, and I think they did quite a bit, especially that 10th inning. And I know it was like a sac fly or whatever, but um, hey, they did what they needed to do to win. So you got to hand it to them. It's just, these are the frustrating ones.
Well, I think, and I did kind of text you on Friday. These are the games that sting because
Yeah,
what we'll see in game number two. Uh, it was a game that had a bunch of other stuff going on, but it was one that you just are frustrated that you kind of let slip through your fingers.
yeah, exactly.
All right, game number two now. Our lineup left to right in the outfield: Witt, Varsho, and George Springer. Around the horn, third to first, Matt Chapman, Bo Bichette, Santiago Espinal, and Vladdy Guerrero. Our catcher for this game, Alejandro Kirk. Our DH, Brandon Belt. And our pitching matchup, drumroll please, Dustin, we have Trevor Richards, the opener, as you predicted, versus Joe Ryan. The Jays took the field in their home whites, and Trevor Richards gets this game underway at 3:08 p.m. with his first pitch. The first inning remains scoreless, but in the bottom of the second, we have a Chapman walk, a Kirk ground out, which Chapman moves to second on, and then Whit Merrifield steps up and hits an RBI single, which Matt Chapman scores from second on. Dalton Varsho gets a single as well, which pushes Whit to second, but unfortunately, Santiago Espinal grounds into a inning-ending double play. So stop me where you've heard that one before, Dustin.
Yeah, I think almost every time he's come up with runners on first.
Santiago Espinal has not had
Mm.
a, I guess, vintage year. We haven't, he hasn't been around long, but last year was quite good. Made the All Star game, but he has not really been great this year. Now he has had some injuries. He got hit by a pitch on his hand, and then of course had his leg injury. But that inning ends 1-0. Espinal does actually have a better game three, but unfortunately, same old in game two.
You know, he had a strong. I mean, last year, as you say, it was good, but it was probably carried by his first half quite a bit. As you said, he made the All-Star game, I think, on a player vote or some kind of
I believe he was a replacement.
right. Yeah. So, and then he deserved it. He was playing fairly well. But I think, what happens with guys like this is I think they make a splash like that, and then the league kind of adjusts, and the book gets out. People notice. They start sort of game planning a lot better for you rather than just throwing you fastballs and asking if you can hit it. They start, throwing to where your weak spots are, and uh, the good ones are able to adjust back and then, stay on top. And it just seems like he hasn't been able to figure it out.
Well, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out for him. Now, top of the third, Trevor Richards completes his third shutout inning. I'm going to touch on his pitching line in a moment, but Dustin, pretty much exactly what you would have hoped for from Trevor Richards to open this one up.
Man, if you told me there was a game, if you told me at the start of the season that there'd be a game started by Trevor Richards, then Tim Meza and Bowden Francis, they would pitch 7 innings. And oh, that's a game that should have been Manoah's start, and he's in the minors. You told me that before spring training, I would have like,
You'd ask me what I was
I was
smoking.
like, yeah, like what are you talking about? No, and Trevor Richards, Meza, and Francis all combined to a really good line there. I guess I don't know what the combined is, but I mean, I was really happy with that. I mean, it's all you can ask for in terms of you know, this kind of bullpen day or whatever you want to call it. Um, Obviously, we'll see, you know, uh, what happens later. But hey, if they actually, this kind of triggers one question for me, and I don't know if anybody's even thinking about it. I haven't heard anybody ask about this, but like, could it be possible that we kind of slowly stretch out Trevor Richards? I mean, I know this is one start, but he's been pitching fairly well, even in his bullpen appearances over the last few weeks and months. So, is it possible that he's an option to kind of stretch out and we do this kind of 3 or 4 or 5 innings over time, and he becomes one of those guys where it's like, hey, I don't know, he's the starter now, like like kind of what Stripling happened to him. I know it was a little bit of a different case for him, but is that I don't know if that's a possibility or not.
He definitely seems to be pitching quite well. He's got that changeup working, which
Nasty.
it's a nasty pitch. Yeah. Um, the commentators were actually suggesting that this is probably one of the best changeups, like for a Jays pitcher, definitely since Marco Estrada. But his Marco Estrada's changeup was a little bit straighter, where this one, obviously has the the full element of the changeup, but it also has a lot of movement on it. So
Yeah.
he got a lot of swings and misses. Now, before I go over his pitching line, though, the Jays do get another run in the bottom of the third. Belt doubles, and Vladdy drives him in with an RBI single to right field. So that inning ends 2-0. Top four, Tim Meza does replace Trevor Richards, And here's his pitching line: 1 hit, 0 earned runs, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts. He was spitting fire on Saturday, Dustin.
No doubt. Yeah, 7 Ks in 3 innings. I mean, geez. Like I said, I mean, I know I might be dreaming, but I mean, if you could stretch him out and put him in the lineup with these other four, oh my Lord, that would be
Well, I don't think it's a terrible idea at all.
yeah.
But it's a much better idea than, Nate Pearson or whatever everybody else is suggesting. So
Yeah, I don't think Nate Pearson. I think he's where he is. I think he didn't. Yeah, he. There's a reason he's not a starter anymore, and I think that he's much better served where he is. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe that's something that they're thinking about. I'm sure that front office and the coaching staff are looking at all the opportunities.
top five now, Bowden Francis replaces Tim Mesa. So another pitching change. Bottom of five, we have the Jays scoring another run where Springer doubles to center field off the wall. Bo flies out, which it pushes. Although Bo did fly out, it did push Springer over to third base, and Nathan Lucas pinch hits for Brandon Belt and gets his first ever Major League RBI. So the game is now 3-0. Dustin, you did touch on the Jays pitchers and their pitching line. They did flash up on the screen their pitching line through 6 innings. So
Okay.
combined, we have between Mesa, Bowden Francis, and Trevor Richards, 6.0 innings pitched, 3 hits, 0 earned runs, only 1 walk, and 12 strikeouts. So I will take that any day of the week.
Oh yeah. I mean, you give me that start every 5 days, and I'll be ecstatic.
Top seven now, Bowden Francis continues pitching, and he gives up a solo home run to straightaway center field. He is then replaced in the game by Adam Simber in the top of the eighth, and Adam Simber immediately loads the bases with 0 outs, not a good sign. And then the Minnesota shortstop Carlos Correa steps up and hits a grand slam to left field on an 0-1 count. So the game is now 5-3. Basically, in 2 innings, there's a 5-run swing. There's another pitching change. Mitch White comes in with 1 out and 2 runners on to replace Adam Simber, but he doesn't really fare a lot better, and he gives up his own 3-run home run as well. And the game is now 9-3. The game stays that way until the bottom of the ninth, where the Jays get 1 run back on an RBI single from Santiago Espinal, which Whit Merrifield scores on, and the Twins win 9-4. Our winning pitcher, George Lopez, not the comedian, losing pitcher Adam Simber, and Adam Simber is now 0-2 with a 6.75 ERA. That is back-to-back losses that have been hung on him. Dustin, I did want to mention that I did miss earlier on. When Brandon Belt scored, he hurt his hamstring.
Oh
So
yeah.
another. I find this actually to be quite maddening, given the other sport that I am quite interested in. Uh, I don't think players should be hurting their hamstring running the bases.
Absolutely not. Yeah, there's no excuse. I don't understand how they do it. It's just they're not stretching, they're not keeping loose. Like, how do you do that? Talked about Simber a little bit there and just blowing up. I know he has got uh, almost like a 9 ERA basically in his last 15 games. I think it's like 10 in his last seven. I was looking at his
Yikes.
numbers earlier. But since his injury, or at least since coming back from his injury, it's up in the 9.10 ERA. So I don't know if he's still injured or what's going on with him, but like I don't know how we can keep throwing him out there. I know that there's not a lot of, you know, super deep depth, in the minors, but the fact that Jay Jackson was sent back to the minors, um, and we got this guy. Look, I I want to like Adam Simber. He's the kind of player that I like. I know, you and I grew up watching probably the 92, 93 season. I mean, Kelly Groover was my favorite player. Like, he had the mullet and he just seemed like a dirt bag. And I've always loved those kinds of guys ever since that. I liked Reed Johnson a lot. I liked like Frank Catalanato and some others that are just kind of, I don't know, Simber's just got that kind of look and that kind of, just the feeling I get from watching him come on the field. So I want to like him. I want him to do well, but holy hell, when he
Yeah,
loaded the
pump the
bases,
brakes.
yeah,
We
let's
need. I think
like,
we're gonna have to pump the brakes on Adam Simber. But I do like Adam Simber as well. I think he brings a little bit of a different look, obviously with his delivery,
mm,
and I think that's all. It's pitching. It's all. You're really just trying to keep hitters off base and whatnot, and I guess he's not really doing that right now very successfully. So we'll see how this plays out towards the All-Star break. I don't know in terms of you did speak about Jay Jackson. I've I've thought for the most part he's pitched quite well, but
yeah,
I don't know if it's that he's a player that has maybe more options than Adam Simber. I can't speak to that unfortunately.
yeah. I mean, if that's it, that's probably it. I don't know what Adam Simber's options are at all. Um, but he's probably getting close to that point where even if he doesn't have options, they try and sneak him through waivers. I don't know if somebody would want to pick him up. I mean, maybe they would. Side armor. Some guys think somebody out there probably think he's a project that they can fix and make work. So,
All right, let's talk about game three, final game of the series. Fortunately, the Jays have lost the first two, so they are not going to be in line for a fifth series win. But we do have a roster change before this game as Bowden Francis gets optioned to AAA and right-handed pitcher Thomas Hatch gets called up. This was essentially to provide another arm in the bullpen. And boy, do we need it this game, Dustin. Not really the performance that we would normally expect from Gosman. I don't think he was throwing terribly. I just think the Twins seem to have the right approach at the plate. But we'll talk about that in a moment. I do want to just quickly go through the lineup. Right to left in the outfield, Nathan Lucas, Dalton Varsho, George Springer. Round the horn, third to first, Matt Chapman, Bo Bichette, Witt, and Cavan Biggio. Our catcher is Alejandro Kirk. Our DH is Vladimir Guerrero. Pitching matchup, the already mentioned Kevin Gosman taking on Louis Varland. The Jays did take the field in their powder blue uniforms, and the first pitch in this one was at 1:39 p.m. Gosman came into this game 5-3 with a 2.63 ERA and a 1.07 WHIP. That's going to change a little bit after this one because in the top of the first, Dustin, the Minnesota Twins jump all over Gosman and the Toronto Blue Jays. I don't know if you're watching this. I was watching live, and I'm just going to go through what kind of took place in this inning, and then we can talk about kind of what we think was maybe happening here. But the four runs were through a double, a walk, an RBI double, another walk, an RBI single, and then a final RBI single. And I think the Jays actually got out of this inning probably a little bit better than maybe they could have, in that they finished the inning with a 5-4-3 double play and stopped the bleeding at 4-0. Dustin, maybe give me your thoughts on Gosman starting out in this one.
yeah, I don't know what it is about the Twins, but I think there was a game either, I'm trying to remember if it was earlier this year or if it was last year, that Gosman played um, pitched against the Twins, and they just had his number. They were laying off the splitter, and they were just swinging at the fastball. I don't know if it's maybe something that the Twins see in him. They can just like they've identified something about his delivery, about his hand position at point of release, or something that they're able to just know when the splitter's coming. It seems like, and on the broadcast they were talking about it a lot. Like it just seems like there was a lot of pitches that he was throwing that are just like good sliders or splitters, and they were just not swinging when most teams would.
Yeah, having watched live and of course hearing Dan and Buck discuss this, yeah, the Twins seem to be able to lay off the splitter, as you said, which for whatever reason, pretty much every other team in the league cannot resist swinging at that pitch. And when not every splitter, of course, is in the strike zone, and when you have a team laying off uh, his basically his main weapon, he's essentially relying on the fastball to throw strikes, and that's where we get those two walks.
Yeah, and just looking at he did pitch against the Twins earlier this year, and just looking through the sort of the box and the summary of the game, he didn't get a whole lot of strikeouts in that game, but you know he got a lot of ground balls and he got a lot of outs on the field. So it seemed like maybe he got a little lucky in terms of like they were they were seeing it the same that they are now, but he just kind of was able to get him out in other ways. Actually, he got 8 strikeouts that game. It's crazy. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe just some days he's off, some days he's on. I don't know.
Well, most of the time he's on and he's quite
Yeah.
on. So we're all, of course, thankful for that this season. Bottom of the
Would
first. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, we're just I think in this game we're just lucky that it didn't hurt too bad. The 4 innings or 4 runs in the first. It's not great, but I mean it's. I think this offense can come back. And I think I said that to you when it was like in the second or third inning.
Yeah, they kind of chipped away. Bottom of the first, the Jays do get a run back with a Matt Chapman sac fly, which scores George Springer, who had got on base earlier in the inning with a single, which he advanced to third on a Vladdy Guerrero single of his own. This score remains into the top of the fifth inning when Dominic Solano steps to the plate and hits a solo home run to center field. Following that, there is a double and then a walk for the Twins. And we have our first pitching change of the game where Thomas Hatch comes in to replace Kevin Gausman. Gausman's pitching line 4.2 innings pitched, 7 hits, 6 earned runs, 4 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Definitely did not have his best stuff, but you know what? I don't know if I'm going to totally fault him for that. It definitely seemed like the Twins had the right approach in this game.
Yeah, I mean he's a lot of mulligan every once in a while. I mean, second, third, fourth inning, he was able to tough it out. I think he found uh, a way to be successful through those innings. And Donovan Solano is a pretty good hitter, and he can put a charge on the ball.
Well, following Thomas Hatch coming into the game, there is an RBI single from Royce Lewis, and that half inning ends 6-1. Bottom of the fifth, the Jays claw themselves back into this game. There's a Biggio single, a Springer walk, Bo flies out. Then Vladdy hits into a ground out, but eventually reaches base on an error and actually advances to second. Biggio scores on this play. Following this, Matt Chapman steps to the plate and hits a 2-run home run to left center field, which Vladimir Guerrero scores on. and this inning ends 6-4.
I got to say that I breathed a big sigh of relief when Matt Chapman hit that home run. He's been struggling lately. I know he had a really hot um, April, but
April, yeah.
this May and even through this early June, he's been pretty cold. So good to see him get a big home run in a spot where they needed him to come through, and so they need him to get hot again. I hope this can be a kind of a trigger point to pull him through.
Well, top seven now. Nate Pearson comes on to replace Hatch. He will eventually pitch into the ninth inning. Bottom of the eighth now, really where this game is won, where Kevin Biggio steps up and hits a 3-run home run to right field. This is on a 2-0 count, and he crushed a 95-mile-an-hour fastball.
Absolutely smashed. And as I say, he can run into one every once in a while. And this is just the kind of thing that makes me wonder, what he could be if he could just kind of turn it around a little bit and do this kind of thing more often. You're not home runs, but even just hitting it this hard. I think I saw his exit velocity was like 105.6 or something. He hit it a long way, so he can turn on one. It's just few and far between, I guess.
Well, it's definitely a massive swing in this game because that brought the Jays to a 7-6 lead. They were able to take that into the top of the ninth, where Jordan Romano comes on to replace Nate Pearson, and he gets the save, which is his 18th of the season. Winning pitcher Nate Pearson, who is now 4-0 with a 2.05 ERA. Our losing pitcher Emiliano Pagan, and Gosman, just to mention, he did get a no decision in this game. His ERA jumps up to 3.12, and his WHIP is now 1.14.
Good to get a win here. I was dreading the sweep. I was um, not looking forward to going into a very important Baltimore series, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a second. With it, after getting swept, when every one of these games was winnable. So it's I think thankful that they at least got this one.
Well, I think my kind of my thoughts on this series, I would definitely agree with you that all three were winnable games, but the Jays, at least in this series, they have responded of late, but they still weren't really able to put a complete kind of game together. In the first game, we had this strong Kikuchi start. We had the runners in scoring position issue. The second inning, the second game, we had a fantastic pitching performance on a bullpen day, which I wouldn't have expected, but they let that one get away, and I think going forward, and especially this week, as you said, they're going to have to put together more comprehensive performances if they're going to continue to pick up wins. They are playing on the road, Baltimore, then the Texas Rangers next weekend, and the Miami Marlins following that. These three teams are all playing quite well right now, so the Jays are going to be tested, and we'll probably see where this Jays team is at. If their track record is anything to go by, Dustin, I imagine they lose the next series and then sweep the following two.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough week, and like you said, it's going to be a test. I was I was watching another podcast or whatever you want to call it, video cast.
How dare you?
I know. Hey, it's competition. I'm just watching the competition. Um, and they were joking about the this Kevin Biggio home run, saying that when they come out with the World Series win DVD, this is going to be, the start of the, you know, the
Yeah.
the run to the World Series. So, and they're not kind of wrong. I know they were joking about it, but they're not wrong. I mean, this is the moment that really they need to kind of flip the on switch. This three against Baltimore is really important. Like, if we got to win this Baltimore series, at least take two, if not sweep. I mean, if you sweep Baltimore, I mean, I think they're 4.5 games. So I guess it depends on how Baltimore did today. Um, but you could really tighten um, that um, lead up and sort of get into a what's it called, a wild card spot here. And like I said, this stretch is really tough, and if they can turn it on now, they've got a lot easier kind of path in the back half of the season, or at least in this middle half, just ahead of the All-Star break. Um, the competition gets a little lighter. I mean, I think we see the Nats sometime soon, and a couple other teams that are sort of at the bottom of that list. So they got to come through this tough stretch uh, with a solid position and just get hot at this right time.
Dustin, let's talk about our player of the series. Can you give me your pick?
Oh, well, I've been bad. I didn't do my homework. I haven't even thought about this. I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna go on gut and say Kevin Biggio with that
Yes,
home runs.
we agree. Like
Yeah,
because there, you know what? I have I have everybody's kind of stats written down, and Kevin Biggio I have like with an exclamation mark, and he didn't really do a lot in the prior two games, but I think he was absolutely critical in this third game. 2 runs, 2 hits, 3 RBIs, and of course that massive home run. Whit Merrifield, another 4 hit series. George Springer, he's seemingly heating up a little bit. Bo Bichette,
he's cooling
probably
off.
he had his coolest series of the season. I don't think I've really seen Bo be this unproductive, but really, you know, Bo Bichette can do Bo Bichette things, and hopefully he does a lot of
He'll
them
be
in
all right.
Baltimore.
Yeah. No, this funny enough, the same podcast that I was talking about there, they were joking about this Kevin Biggio. They call him when he does well, they call him COVID Kevin because during the COVID season he was lights out. He was pretty good, and so they when he's not doing well, they call him Kevin Biggio. When he's doing well, they call him COVID Kevin. That made me chuckle.
That's funny. Well, the other player that I think we could use some more out of is Vladimir Guerrero. I don't know if we have time now to really get into his struggles, whether whether that he may be carrying an injury. He seems to DH a little bit more off. He's been DHing a little bit more, so I'm wondering if he's kind of nursing something. But maybe that knee injury that
Yeah,
he had before. But he last time I checked, they flashed a graphic up on the screen, and he was on pace for 22 home runs, which I believe would be a career low. So something's off, or maybe he's just not in the best place right now. Hopefully, we can get him. Swinging again. It is on the road, so maybe there's a few home runs in the next 9 games.
I gotta believe it's a timing thing. I mean, he's hitting the ball fairly well in terms of like he's got a pretty good on base percentage, if I'm not mistaken. Like he can he's still hitting pretty well, but it's just he's just not getting that his slugging is kind of lacking. And I don't know if it's just a timing thing. He's just not squaring it up right. He's hitting a lot of ground balls and they're finding holes, probably because the the shift is not what it used to be. And so sometimes those ground balls are finding holes, but yeah, he's got to figure something out. And you might be right. He had that knee issue earlier. Maybe he's just trying to play through that. There's been a lot of a long stretch here of games over the last month and a half that without off days, and he plays almost every day. And so maybe some off days here and some rest will do him good, but he's got to figure it out soon.
Well, definitely any sort of run or hopeful playoff appearance will probably depend on that. And if
Yeah,
he can turn it around, that would be amazing. Now, the Jays do have an off day, which is actually, we are recording on that day. So they do have an off day before they head to Baltimore and beautiful Camden Yards. Dustin, have you ever been to Camden Yards?
I have not. Have you?
Well, I have, and it is incredible. So it's a really awesome stadium, and I highly recommend you checking it out.
I'll have to do that. I hear that that's one of the ones like, that one and the Pittsburgh Stadium and a couple others are just beautiful stadiums. So I'll have to check it out. And it's so close. It should be pretty easy to get to.
Yeah, I don't think yeah, we drove to Baltimore. It's a pretty decent drive, but once you get there, it's not. Some areas are pretty rough, but it's not too bad overall if you stay in the right areas.
I know.
All right, I think that's all the time we have. Dustin, thanks again for joining me.